Shum is when you're changing a noun. Okay, so I'm good. So nash, shum, I'm good. See, where shuk is changes a verb. So shuk dashed niche. Good, I feel. So one's an adverb and one's an adjective. But you hear them both in the language, shuk and shum. Okay, all right. So remember, shum is always going to change a noun, and shuk is always going to change a verb. Okay. Now the reason why it gets truncated is because if I give you a verb question, da e la ha de dee-ni, and you say shuk, it's understood you're saying I feel. And if I say da e la ha de dee-ni, how are you feeling? You say shum because it's a truncation of I'm good. See, so they work, but don't confuse them. One is an adjective and one is an adverb. Okay, grammatical. And that's what we're here for today, is grammar. Okay. So, take a look here. Take a couple of seconds just to talk about me. Yay. So, how is it that I arrived at this position, point in life, where I can stand up here and rattle on and talk about the dee-ni grammar? And I've shared my story probably 2 or 3 or 10,000 times, too many times. But the point, I guess, just that I want to share real quick is that I had actually, there's, hey, Donald, okay, stop with Dr. Stuff, with Dr. Stuff, Newton, John? Long state da cinta, John? Sure, da cinta. Oh, sure. John, Newton? So what happened to me, or how I became a product or whatever, yeah, what happened to me, this is therapy session 3000,000,027. So, no, what happened to me, or what happened was, is that I grew up in this time called, the Cultural Revolution. And I always say it's when America dropped LSD and discovered all kinds of things. It discovered, minorities and poor people and the corporate power and et cetera, and so it was on from there. And then the hippies copied the Indians and decided to try to love the earth and so forth and so on. And so I was born in that generation, okay? And tail end of the crazy 60s, and rock and roll and blah, 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 blah. So you go from there. And in that tumultuous cultural revolutionary period that I was reared in, women did manage to burn their bras and try to behave like men, and men tried to destroy their jockstrap and become females or something. So I'm a part of that socialization period as well. And now we're trying to rediscover our alphas and our
omegas.
Discuss with our omega beta selves because we gave it up for the bra burners, and who gladly took them on and tried to take our testicles while they were at it. But anyway, so coming out of this really creative, tumultuous period of history in America, and you had the black movement and so forth, you also had these people called Indians. Okay, and Indians are, a funny group. We have a very different history in America. We arrived as Americans, through the back door. We did not get to come front door. We didn't get to go through Ellis Island and be naturalized. We had to sneak in until 1924. We probably became citizens. So, much later. And in that sociology, we survived in pockets. Okay, in some tribes, some groups had land tracts called reservations or rancheries they could actually hang out on, and some of us, especially California, did not. We were kind of shoved around and ignored and minimalized, marginalized. Probably the best that best from the perspective of the government as possible. They damaged California really well. So anyway, in that history, that tumultuousness, we had a little community hall called Fresh Chew Hall. It was purchased from the Methodist Church, probably, it was built in, I think it was finished in 32, somewhere around there. And then the Methodists were working with the heathens, the Tawalas, the dee-ni, and converting them to the truth and the light and salvation. And then they finally gave up a little bit in the 30s, I guess, after the Shaker religion arrived here from Siletz, Oregon. and decided to abandon the church. And so at that point, the Indians got together, the dee-ni, and they purchased the building, and it became, they had to saw the cross off the front top because it was no longer going to be a church. And we continued to meet there, and that's where I grew up, in that hall. And our elders would get together quite regularly, and meet and talk and discuss needs and, you know, community needs and familial needs and so forth and so on. And so in that environment then, we still had that generation in our presence that were born in the 1870s, 1880s, 1890s, were very present with us at that time. Very, you about same time today, James, up you? Joe, you do. So we got to actually witness and learn from the people who were the second generation after the Holocaust. Okay, so they were that, you know, the Holocaust ended, it physically ended in 1857, officially. Yeah, 56. So these people were born in the 80s, 90s, and 90s. 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. See, so they were just a decade or two or three decades after the Holocaust ended. So we got a chance to spend time around those folks. And that's where I got to hear probably the most language in terms of public, and is hearing the language was there. And now we also learned to dance there. We learned to do governance and take minutes and take attendance, and, you know, it had a sign-in sheet that started in 1929 actually, and it rolled clear till 1976.
Was that the Del Norte Welfare Association?
The Del Norte Indian Welfare Association, correct. dee-ni. Well, yeah, Del Norte Indian Welfare Association was established around 29, and it rolled on clear until 76 when it collapsed.
Oh, that's a long time.
It was a long time. And so then at home, you know, because I'm a marginal American citizen, you know, societally and economically, we lived in a very separate world. I really just only knew my world. I didn't really know the greater America world. I was not a part of it. I didn't grow up amongst it. I didn't have a lot of friends in that arena. Well, they didn't want to be friends of mine, that was for sure. And there was a few crazies. But so I grew up really in a very close society. You know, like there was auntie, and uncle, and their wives and their husbands. And then there were the first cousins and second cousins and so forth. And we just really hung around a lot with each other and did just our family stuff all the time.
At Neely Chundan?
At Neely Chundan, and also down here at the mouth of the river.
Oh.
Yeah, because we would drive fish every summer down, you know, here at the mouth of the river, and on the north Nauset side. And, you know, and our cemetery was there, you know, the Gushu Hall is near there, the Shaker Church was there, you know, so all the social interaction occurred in that arena. And I really didn't have to have friends because I had cousins, right? So, didn't know the difference though. See, I don't know that. I'm just growing up as this little Indian kid on the banks of the Smith River, you know. And was aware that there were Yurok people to the south, and very aware there were Cutter people to the east. Very unaware that there were Coos people to the north. I was not conscious of Coos people when I was growing up at all. No Coos people in my registry. I mean, I became aware of them later in life. So as this all took off and happened and grew and all this craziness was going on, we were forced to go to school, of course. I mean, all kids love school, right? Well, there are geeks in the world that do actually love it. But we all had to go to that place. And we went there, and I put up with it. And then I couldn't wait to get off that bus every day, you know, after 4 o'clock, sick from diesel smoke. Staggered off the bus, you know, it was an hour ride in and an hour ride out every day, you know. But crawled off into the house and ate Cheerios because my stomach was so upset. And other things developed. Well, anyway, or leftover cold rush from the morning. Well, anyway, so in that environment, then there was this whole nuance that was happening in America, and people were changing. You know, the power structure was shifting, and, you know, and Leave It to Beaver was full, you know, full on, and you know, all that craziness.
The American Ideal.
Yeah, it was, you know, World War II was over,
Yeah.
and it was probably the most powerful time of American culture, and people were having kids like a dozen at a time, not time, per family. You
Litters.
know, just gonna repopulate America, you know, and just, you know, everybody owned a home and a car, and, you know, and had Pepsi and 7-Up in the garage, and, you know, well, they did, anyway, so.
We had Kool-Aid.
Yeah, Kool-Aid, exactly, and lots of sugar,
Yeah.
right? Lots of sugar, and so forth. But anyway, so out of that came this idea from the dee-ni community that we wanted to preserve the language. And that's kind of where I got tapped in really young. And our parents, it was all of our cousins and first cousins as moms and dads that kind of said, this is important. And so that's how we got roped into it, or it was the thing to be a part of, it was the thing to do. And didn't know that it was other than just that, you know. And so we started documenting the language. So anyway, that's how I arrived here. Began my journey, I should say, and started actually then searching out language. I was coached by my parents, my mother specifically, taken to homes of speakers, and then I began to ask them questions and want to know how to say things, how to understand. My Aunt Laura, which was lived next door to my mom. She was 19 years older than Mom. So she really acted like more like a grandma to me. And, you know, I could talk to her and ask her anything in the language. And she, you know, sometimes she didn't know something, she'd think about it and she'd remember, you know, whatever. And then there was Uncle Ernie and Auntie Maddie, Auntie Etta, and Auntie Evelyn, and Mom, and, you know, then they all could talk the language. So, you know, that was their first language when they were kids. They had to go to Redwood School in Fort Dick and be taught English. So, you know, they had forgotten a lot here and there maybe or whatever, but it didn't take long if you worked with them that they'd come back, whatever. So I just, again, so we were I was in that period where we wrote the language for the first time, and I'll talk a little more about that here in a bit. But the writing of it the first time, really focusing on us as a community and that whole thing. So that's me, kind of how I got here, okay? So where I wanted to start today, though, is about our language. So grammar. The first thing I want to say about grammar is this. Grammar is, you know, so if you're going to study a grammar, of course it has a lot of benefits to you. But grammar, where did I write it down here? Grammar is the study of language, not speaking a language, Okay, they're very different, so don't confuse these two things. Don't confuse the idea that to be able to parse and pull apart the language, you know, that kind of stuff, on one side of that, you have to know in order to speak a language. But on the other hand, if that's all you do, you will never become a speaker. So I just want to make sure that you understand that they're very different. This here is the science more side of language. This is more of the biology of language. So grammar is the biology of language. And you're going to say, well, what the heck, how can that be? You know, so okay, let's put quotes around it then, so it won't freak you out. But really, language is alive. Yeah, it doesn't have to eat, you know, other animals and get fuel from other animals, and it doesn't have to procreate, you know, through, you know, fusion or whatever. But it definitely reduplicates itself. And it grows, changes, evolves, and emerges all the time. It's continual, just like biology. The sun scorches the top layer and makes it morph, shines on the lower layer and stays the same. You know, well, language is the same exact way. Every generation adds its piece to a language. You know, so language evolution is in a living language. Language evolution and change is normal. So grammar then now is a study of that. And that's why it's called the biology of a language, because it actually has all these rules, all these patterns, all these trace elements. It has ancestral chunks that are fossilized, and then it's got nuance on the front end that's completely brand new and changing, and you know, and it's all part of the language. So that's why language really is